Edge of Eternity PC Review. Edge of Glory turn-based role-playing games are where I learned to love this particular genre. It started way back with Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and continues even now. While this type of title has changed from then until now, Midgar Studio decided to take its shot by going in a similar but different direction in Edge of Eternity. This title holds up well against other similar titles, and here is what I think about it. Edge of Eternity starts off as most games do, with a brief tutorial on how to move around and control your characters while in battle. The story follows Daryon and Celine, siblings, who set out to find a cure for a disease called corrosion. As its name suggests, it withers away at a person's body. It is something that plagues the entire world, and it all started with an alien invasion. I am also a huge fan of the look and feel of AOI. The huge open world feel gives you so much to explore and quest through. From pickups for crafting to treasure chests for loot and all of the creatures you can defeat to earn your experience points from. There is no shortage of enemies to fight, and you quite literally run into them to start your fights. From frozen mountains to beaches on the sea, every element seems to be crafted perfectly to immerse you in the game world. For a company with very few people, the amount of detail in the world itself along with its characters and NPCs is astonishing. There are other companies with more employees that don't hit the mark like some of the models of this title did. Tie these wins together with the storyline Midgar Studio has created, and I feel that this is a winning title. Man, I'm not even sure where to begin with Edge of Eternity's story. There's a lot going on, and you can bet that plenty of that is thrown at you right away. The world of Daryon, though once entirely majestic, has been plunged into despair after being attacked ceaselessly by unknown alien invaders for years. While the threat of a worldwide alien invasion is terrifying enough on its own, the mysterious invaders have also brought with them an equally mysterious, and equally deadly, disease known simply as the corrosion. Desperate to win at all costs, Daryon's conscription has seen it bringing in numerous young men and women straight into the battlefield as of late, such as protagonist Daryon, in hopes of winning with numbers. Unfortunately, however, these young soldiers generally meet their end quickly, a fate which Daryon seemed destined to meet himself, until he fought back against it, thus putting into motion a chain of events that would ultimately bring about permanent change to himself, his family, and his world. With all these details and bits of exposition thrown your way, Edge of Eternity can get very confusing fast. It doesn't help matters that the pacing is uneven at times. For instance, although Daryon and Celine reunite during the game's first chapter, they're the only two party members you'll have for the next several hours. What then follows is an epic journey that suddenly slows down as additional details of the story present themselves in bits and pieces. You'll visit new locales, many of which are wondrous to behold. I simply can't stress enough how much Midgar Studio succeeded in crafting a dazzling world filled with many biomes, creatures, cities, and sweeping vistas. All of it is striking to look at, and the musical score is pleasing to the ears. Still, by the time you're grinding for extra experience points or you're doing your 10th monster hunting side quest, you'll start to realize that the game was attempting something at an epic scale, only to stumble a little as reality sank in. For instance, there's a good chance that the first few monsters that you fight will look unique. As you reach new zones in later chapters, you'll notice that mobs tend to be reskins or renamed variants. It gets even more glaring the further you go in the game. There are some locations that simply aren't fully utilized, i.e., you might visit a zone only once. And yet, successive main quest objectives have you to return to locations from previous chapters. It's also a misnomer to think that Edge of Eternity is a true, open-world RPG. Although it has massive zones filled with enemies, resource nodes, and the occasional side quest, these regions are separated by narrow pathways and mountain passes that you need to traverse. It's akin to seeing several extraordinary locations, only for most of the critical junctures to occur in cramped hallways, linear passages, and small caves. At the very least, you'll find a few ruins with brain-teasing puzzles to earn more rewards, and you'll eventually have a Nekaru, giant, twin-tailed cat mount. Let's face it, cats are always awesome. World building and story development are among the more ambitious points of Edge of Eternity. There's a lot going on with the story, and while the idea of unassuming angsty teenage soldier is haphazardly tasked with saving the world from a grand calamity isn't anything new, the story is at least an interesting take. Information about the greater plot is doled out gradually so it never becomes overwhelming. Unfortunately, it seems like the scope of the story the developers want to tell exceeds what the game is capable of, as there are many parts throughout the game where it feels like more information could help make things feel more complete. The mix of medieval fantasy where heroes fight monsters with swords and magic blended with technological that exceeds what we've achieved in the modern world has always seemed absurd, but there's countless animes and JRPGs that have successfully pulled off blending the fantasy and sci-fi tech worlds. The landscapes designs are interesting, mixing natural formations that wouldn't exist in a world without magic combined with evidence of the alien technology. There's a crafting system for customizing and improving equipment, but the drop rates for many important items is low, making it a painful grind, while the crafting system itself is shallow and poorly executed. For a large amount of the game you'll just have the aforementioned soldier and priestess, Daryon and Celine respectively, in your party with a few others coming and going before you finally form a group of 4. Managing these team members is fairly simple as they have separate weapons and armor requirements. Where things get more tactical is through the implementation of the crystal system. All character weapons have their own skill tree which opens up as the weapon is leveled up separately from the character's own levels. This means that changing to a more powerful weapon entails temporarily losing your skills and spells. The crystals you equip also have unique combinations of bonuses and effects, so you have to decide which to apply to which character's weapon. There is quite a deep system here, but also one that can be engaged with on a superficial level, if you are more into story than min-maxing. Well, that sounds excellent so far, so what's the problem? The gameplay. The gameplay is the problem. Edge of Eternity uses a Final Fantasy-inspired turn-based battle system. Turn order is decided by a slowly filling white meter. Do not mistake the white meter for a health bar. It's easy to do, but the actual health bar is the red one underneath the white meter. Combat combines standard turn-based RPG combat with the tactical complexity of SRPGs. It's not enough to simply choose the right commands, your characters need to be in the right places as well. Both you and your foes can interact with environmental items on the battlefield. Characters recover health between battles, SRPG style, which is very convenient. Attack animations take a long time and spellcasting takes approximately forever, which is less convenient. This all sounds fine in theory, but in practice, it's a bit of a hot mess. The camera constantly switches between JRPG-style close-ups of the characters and an SRPG-style aerial view of the battlefield. Battles look cool when the camera follows the character, but I wish the game would just stick to a stable zoomed-out camera like most strategy games. Not only is it hard to see the full battlefield even in the aerial view, the constant jerking about made me feel ill. The dynamic day and night system adds a lot of atmosphere to the world and the environments are gorgeous at night, but time moves too quickly. You can go through an entire day and night in one particularly lengthy battle, which is weird. Fortunately, enemies can be viewed and avoided on the over-map, which is nice given how much of the game is spent trying to get from point A to point B without running into something that might be too tough for you. Unfortunately, you can't really dash for more than about 10 seconds before you start hemorrhaging team energy, and if you run out of that you start bleeding health. Graphics are in the acceptable range, particularly during battle. In cutscenes, however, facial and hair animations are more than a bit janky. Even in gameplay, long, flowing clothes tend to clip through things when a character runs. There's no way to deny that the textures can be really bad. Celine and Syl's hairstyles are especially questionable, especially the bangs. This sticks out because the anime-style character portraits used during dialogue are actually very good, which makes me wonder why there are so many in-game cutscenes. It would look better if the cutscenes were visual novel-style stills. In fact, maybe this game should have been done with sprites and pixels. I think I'd love it if it was a 2D SRPG. The playable characters are also unlikable, which makes it hard to want to continue playing as them. It's fine for characters to start out as angsty, indifferent, selfish, or conniving, but they can and should grow over the course of a well-realized story. The party in Edge of Eternity are nasty and unappealing throughout the entire story, and they don't come close to earning any of the emotional payoffs at the end of the game. All of this isn't helped by a lack of polish when it comes to character animations. There are some scenes where characters just teleport into different positions between shots, making the game feel like an anime parody at times, with people flash stepping around the room. Edge of Eternity is an ambitious game, but it doesn't quite live up to its scope. The game feels like a homage to the classic Final Fantasy games of old, but its enchanting world is let down by the lackluster events happening on its surface. The combat system and character customization are well done, but they don't matter if there isn't a good reason to keep moving forward. While JRPG fans will likely find enough to like that it's worth giving Edge of Eternity a shot, other players should seek more engaging options within the same genre.